Welcome to the Post Shift Podcast, your raw look at the hospitality industry, brought to you by SHC.
That's better. What is happening, Post Shifters? Welcome back to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Soole. Today, talking about how much does it actually cost to open a restaurant. This is something that we talk about, and I think a lot of industry people are like, well, it's roughly this much. Let's break down some numbers. This is the industry standards research that I've done. I'm going to throw in a few antidotes while we're going through. So hopefully you get some bit of value from this. If you do, please subscribe, like, comment, do all the things on all the platforms. I really appreciate you. Okay, so let's look at the upfront costs. Your lease and your real estate. So there's two ways you can go about this. You can buy an existing restaurant and take that over, keep the name, move forward. There are pros and cons to that. You can take the good and the bad and the goodwill and the name and the brand. Usually goodwill is worth something when you take over a brand, and that usually does make the number quite substantial when it comes to buying an existing business. Or you can start from scratch. Both have pros and cons. Really depends on what your concept is. If you're buying an existing space and not taking over the brand or the name, keep in mind that goodwill is part of the price, and so you really got to sort of niggle it down with the salesperson about whether or not that price is inflated because of the goodwill. So keep that in mind. Buying a restaurant, it might look good on paper, but if you're buying someone else's goodwill to line their pockets and you're not keeping the name and the brand, you're overpaying 9 times out of 10. So lease and upfront costs. If you're looking for a lease, you're looking at probably $20 to $50 per square foot. With the plus. Now, when I say plus, I'm talking about tax and triple nets. Triple nets looks after all the landlord expenses, so maintenance and frontage and that sort of thing. Really delve into that and look at that number, because sometimes the triple nets or the plus can actually be more than your actual lease. I've seen it. I have heard about it. So really, don't think you're getting a great deal. Really delve into and do your due diligence on how much your triple nets and your plus is, because that's the thing that can really bite you in the butt. Getting a good per square foot rate, but having massive triple nets doesn't make sense. So how much should your lease be? Your lease should be 6 to 10% of your gross monthly sales, and if you're starting out, your gross monthly projected sales. So 6 to 10% is that sweet spot. I like to lean towards 6. Under 6, you're money on under 6%, and anything over 10, depending on where you are, location, high traffic areas, that sort of thing, you may make your money back. When you're looking at your lease, before you open, looking at leases, really have a figure in your head, because you should have already worked out how many seats you want, how many covers you can physically do, how many hours you're actually open, what your per head spend should be, and you should be tracking down venues or spaces that have that lease that sort of fits in your budget. Lease is very important. It can sink places, and if you've been in Victoria and Vancouver, it has been in the last couple of months. So really look at what your projected sales are going to be for a space, and then look for spaces that apply that lease to those projected monthly sales. Once you do sign a lease, this is a big one that I always say. When you're in negotiations with your landlord, do not touch anything that's underground. Anything that you can't physically take with you if you have a falling out with your landlord or you decide to move and upgrade spaces should not be your expense. Leasehold improvements, for the most part, should be put on the landlord. So if your washrooms aren't city council signed off on, landlord should fix that. And I know a lot of landlords out there are like, no, I'm not doing that. But really think about, if you can, the rule of thumb that I live by is, if you can't take it with you when you leave, then shouldn't be your expense. So keep that in mind when you're negotiating your lease, because that's something I've lived by, and I've really stood by it for a long time, is if you can't take it with you when you leave, it's not your expense. Build out and renovations. So most build and renovations, you're looking at about $150 to $750 plus dollars per square foot. So $150 per square foot for like a quick service QSR, laid back diner, like minimalist space, that sort of thing. Fine dining space, $750 per square foot plus. That's just the general standard about like how much it's going to cost you to design a room. Now, Building out a room also includes architects, electrical engineers, plumbing engineers, plumbing engineers, interior designers. All that money comes into this, how much that space is. So you're not necessarily just spending dollars and cents on tangible hard items. You're actually spending money on people who are going to consult with you. So it's a big, big expense. Equipment and furniture is going to run you about $50,000 to $250,000. Again, you open it, if you buy an existing space, you may have furniture and fixtures and equipment that come along with that space. $250, $250,000 for fixtures and equipment, not unreasonable. One thing I always like to sort of throw out there to people who are opening up bars and restaurants, while secondhand auction items are good in theory in the start, they can bite you in the ass long term because they don't have a warranty and guarantees. So if you buy brand new, yes, it's more expensive, but it covers you sometimes from 2 to 5 years for anything that breaks, replacement costs, that sort of thing. It works itself out pretty damn quickly. Like the number of times I've opened places and a freezer or a fridge or something has broken in the first 6 to 12 months, would have cost me a couple of grand to fix, cost me nothing because I spent that little bit extra. So just keep that in mind when you're buying equipment for your space. New comes with a lot of pros and cons, so does secondhand. So while you're thinking you're saving money, you may not be long term. Licenses and permits. Whew. Licenses and permits. Depends on where you are. $5,000 or $50,000. Sometimes you have to buy liquor licenses. Depends on what market you're in, what license you want. I know here in BC you have to buy liquor primary licenses if you just want to be a bar, which is really tough. Expect to spend $5,000 to $50,000 on health permits, liquor licensing, all the red tape stuff. If you think that you know exactly how much all the red tape costs, double it because there's always more red tape. Fire inspectors, that sort of thing. But perfect story. We were going to open Little Jumbo on a certain day. We were done, ready to rock and roll. Staff were good, chefs were in the kitchen, that sort of thing. Fire inspector came by, and the one thing that he was not going to let us open with was that without our numbers on the door. So we had to rush out to the hardware store, get a 103, and put it on the front door, take a photo, send it to the fire inspector. And he's like, "Yep, you guys are good. You can open." Just that one little thing. When I said you don't know about how much red tape you've got until you know how much red tape you've got, that's exactly what I mean. So, operating costs. Staffing. Payroll is a killer. You should try and keep 3 to 6 months worth of payroll in the bank as a slush fund just to make sure you're covered. Keep in mind in the very, very beginning when you're training, you're going to be training servers, bartenders, support staff. Kitchen is going to be doing R&D, cooking, training, all that sort of stuff. This is a time which it could be 2 to 4 weeks before you open where you're not bringing any revenue, but you're still paying out payroll. So keep in mind 3 to 6 months worth of payroll in the bank as a slush fund is a very nice soft starter for you. Inventory, you're looking at about $10,000 to $50,000, depending on what you're getting. Obviously, kitchen stuff rotates much, much quicker than, say, the bar. If you're a wine bar or whiskey bar, you're going to hold a lot more inventory than a normal restaurant or bar would because you're focusing on something that you may have to have exorbitant amount of backup and supplies for to be that bar. Especially wine bars. Wine bars are always a tough one because you might taste a bottle that's 18, 19, 20 bucks a bottle, but you got to buy a 12 pack. So $20 bottle all turns into $360 worth of revenue, of inventory, sorry. So yeah, you got to keep that in mind. Like $10,000 to $50,000 is a nice number. Marketing. So launch campaigns, signage, promotions could cost anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 depending on how big you want to go. I will always say digital marketing wins out on this one. Digital marketing, digital marketing, digital marketing, digital marketing, digital marketing. Please do as much digital marketing as you can. Put out a press release to media so you get some media exposure. But digital marketing, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever you think is the right fit for your business. Google Ads, digital marketing gives you a better ROI, a better coverage, better return, and better data to crunch. Tech. I talked about this in last week's episode. POS systems are exorbitantly expensive. Printers, cabling, people to install it. POS is excessively expensive. So POS reservation system and any tech gear, $2,000 to $10,000. So $2 to 10 grand, $2,000 is definitely on the low side. So keep in mind when you're designing the space, have a think about your POS from the get-go. Because if you're opening up walls and that sort of thing, it's the perfect time to put in your cabling for your POS. If your POS is wireless, great. You're still going to have to put modems somewhere, and those modems are going to have good connectivity. It's a ton of like little excerpts around POS alone that you really need to think about from day one. So contingency fund. You really got to keep 10 to 20% of your total budget for contingency. So contingencies are things when it fucks up. When shit fucks up, 10 to 20%. You're gonna need it. Amount of times, my very first restaurant, I screwed up with the contingency, and it shit me in the bed for about a year, like really, really bad. So once you build your budget up, there should be a line at the very bottom saying contingency fund, and that will vary depending on how comfortable you feel with contingency. And that line should be basically total times 10%, and it should change. Anything you change above it, that line changes, just so you know how much your total budget should be. So how much does it actually cost to open a restaurant? So smart, fast casual, QSR, that sort of thing, $150,000 to $500,000, I think is a good number. Yeah, I think it's a good number, depending on how many seats you've got, that sort of thing. Mid-size to full-size restaurants, $500,000 to $1.5 million. Again, I think that's a reasonable number. I think it's a very reasonable number for like your 50-plus seat sort of space. And then, of course, high-end fine dining, we're looking at $1 million to $3 million. That's just like, if you go in fine dining, that's like next level crazy. That's next level. You're doing what you will with what you want. But yeah, listen, I'm not just trying to deter anyone from opening a restaurant. I want people to be more educated and informed on how much it actually costs to set up a restaurant. I don't think there's anyone out there going, these are hard and fast figures that you should be looking at. If you've got any questions about opening a restaurant or a bar, hit me up, DM me. Happy to chat biz about anything. But as always, guys, thanks for the support, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening, Pose Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoy sitting down with friends and peers and just chatting about the industry and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what's really going on out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, everything on all the platforms. Just hit it up, and I'll do my best to answer any queries or questions you have. I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.